my fellow Americans. If you think you know politics, think again. I'm Michael Cohen, and every week on When You Know, we're pulling back the curtain on power, politics, media, and the people making headlines. On my new WABC radio show, you'll hear conversations from names that you know. People like Jerry Falwell Jr., Anthony Scaramucci, Alan Dershowitz, and many, many more. Maybe, just maybe, we'll even hear from the president. No scripts, no spin, just real conversations with people who were in the room where it happened. And trust me, we've got some very big surprises coming. Look, I've spent years at the center of politics, controversy, and power. I know the players, I know the stories, and now I'm bringing you inside. When You Know, Sundays at 5 p.m. on WABC Radio, and When You Know Unleashed, wherever you get your podcasts. Because with me, you never know who's going to show up.
Listen, all you New Yorkers.
Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Hey, here we are. We're here for those of you that are joining us. We've spoken a lot about things. We spoke about my new segment called The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, where we're calling out Mayor Mamdani with the good things, the bad things, and the ugly things that he does, and we're going to do that every week. But we're here with a special guest. His name is David Banks. He was the former Chancellor of New York City. And I want to invite Michael Cohen to come back into the studio, put his headphones on. I want him to come back, sit next to me here, because this guy, he's on fire, man. He's on fire. I don't know how many millions of people have tuned in. It's like I got bases loaded right now, brother. And I've got, 3 balls and no strikes. And I'm ready to either walk in that run or hit a home run and hit the ball out the park.
Whatever you do, don't strike out.
No, that's why I want him back in here. David, talk to us, man. You led the largest public school system in America. Tonight, let's talk about where our schools are today and where we're headed, please.
Yeah. Listen, first of all, know this. I was a teacher in the school system for many years. I made my way up through the ranks. Heck, I was even a school safety agent, Fernando. I don't know if you knew that. But, the main reason that I took this job was because I was just so deeply frustrated with our lack of performance. The fact that, so many of our kids who come to us and our parents who give us the best that they have, and these are their kids, and we really were not doing the right thing by their kids for decades. We haven't. And I trace it back to the fact that even when I was a teacher, I watched how we changed how we taught kids how to read. And the fact that kids were not being taught properly how to read was a major issue for me. If kids don't learn how to read, I don't care what else you do in school. You can't be successful if you don't give them the basic foundational block. And for decades, we had gone into a whole nother system where kids were not even getting the basic foundational skills that they needed. And that is what I set out to change.
Mr. Chancellor, we have a budget of 30% of $126 billion going to one New York City institution.
Sure.
What can't you do with $45 billion? I mean, you had it, you managed it, it was yours. You operated independently from City Hall.
Well, to some degree,
that's what we want to know. To some degree, so you don't have full control.
No, you don't have full control. I mean, because now you have the school system is under what we call mayoral control, and so all the big decisions that get made, even by the chancellor, have to be approved by City Hall and by the mayor personally. So
did they handcuff you?
No, I wouldn't say no. My working with Eric Adams, he didn't handcuff me. No, I think Eric trusted me to a large degree to make the kinds of big decisions that needed to be made. And we did that. And the biggest thing that we did was we began to retrain all the teachers across the school system, particularly in the earliest grades, on how to teach kids how to read. You would be shocked by the fact that so many teachers don't know fundamentally how to teach kids how to read. You would say, well, what the hell do we have a school system for? That's the reason why I put into place something called NYC Reads. And that was, we transformed how we actually teach reading. And we've seen the results. Some of the biggest gains that we've had over the last couple of years that we had not seen in decades in the New York City school system.
Mr. Chancellor, I've asked Michael Cohen to join us because I've also asked him to run for mayor of New York City. I've asked him, and I want him to be able to listen to you face to face, because you were one of the best chancellors we've had in a long time in New York City. And we all thought you were doing a great job because you come from the inner city. You come from the hood. You grew up and you were a teacher and you did all those things that you said. Discipline. Michael, you can jump in any time.
Yeah, so you brought up that, Chancellor, were you handcuffed? I know what it feels like to be handcuffed and shackled. Literally handcuffed and shackled. Right. I could tell you some stories about that. And you asked about, what can't you do with $40 billion? 45 billion. Well, the answer is you can't run the Department of Defense or the Department of War. But think about the number, $45 billion. Divide that by the number of students that each will be allocated, and the number is staggering. You would think that they're going to, university. That's how much money is spent on each individual student. So imagine, for that amount of money, you can't properly educate a child?
And you absolutely can. We were not doing that. Before I became chancellor, we absolutely were not. Now, you think about 40...
Well, de Blasio was the worst mayor this city has ever seen. So those 8 years... I'm sure that the DOE was in shambles. I mean, they were shackled.
Well, there were a lot of challenges. De Blasio put his big emphasis around 3K and pre-K and the earliest kids, and there's been real success there. I don't want to knock that, but once kids were in kindergarten and going all the way through the rest of the school system, they were not learning how to read. Just think about that, right? And so what would seem like the most fundamental thing, you send your kids to school, they should learn how to read.
Well, then how then did they pass the grade? How are they not being pulled back? I remember as a child, in school, we had a couple of kids who were left back.
Sure.
Right? They had fundamental reading problems in mathematics. Today, there's all other sorts of things that they do. They put them on various different medications. Sure. They have ADHD, whatever it might be.
Right.
How are they passing? Is it just simply do your time like I did in Otisville, and then you end up, getting out of the grade?
To some degree, Michael.
Well, that's wrong.
It's absolutely wrong.
We're not giving them the opportunities within which to make it in America.
I completely agree with that. We were doing social promotion pretty extensely for a long time.
Michael for mayor, you can come back as chancellor. I mean,
listen.
You'll be my chancellor with $45 billion.
Oh my God, with 45.
I mean, Mateo, seriously, $45 billion.
Let me say this when people hear $45 billion, right? Because we talk about it's about $40,000 per kid, right? It is a lot of money, right? But you need to know, less than 50% of that actually goes directly into classrooms and schools. So where does that $45 billion go?
The teachers union.
No, it doesn't go to teachers union.
I'm just kidding.
But think about this. We have the largest transportation system in the nation.
$1.5 billion goes to that.
It goes to transportation. It goes to food. It goes to construction costs, building schools, keeping the lights on in schools. There's a lot of just operational stuff. It goes to pay pensions for teachers, right? So there's a lot. We get the money that goes to charter schools actually comes through our budget. That's part of that $40+ billion. Well,
charter schools
as a pass through that goes into them as well.
Charter schools are great.
Well, some are great and some are not so great. There's a mixed bag with that. There are some that are doing extremely well, and there are some that are just doing, they're just doing all right.
How about discipline? When I went to school,
right,
and I dropped out of school when I was 14 years old, before I entered high school. And the reason why
before they held you back?
No, actually, I was smarter than the 12th graders, so I was bored in school.
I know you were brilliant, Fernando.
I was bored in school because I grew up with priests and nuns.
Yeah.
So, I went to boarding schools most of my life, and, when you misbehaved, you got smacked in the face. When you misbehaved, you got the ruler.
You think we should be smacking the kids in the face and hitting them with rulers?
Today you get an Oreo cookie and a glass of milk.
Listen, the way some kids behave in school, there's no discipline.
None.
It's like there's no discipline. The teachers have no authority. And when the teachers try to discipline, then they get punished.
No, they get sued.
They
get sued by the system, and the legal system rewards the bad actor when it comes to this. You can't touch my child. You can't discipline my child. You're going to put my child into this class. All of a sudden, we're going to speak to the superintendent. We're going to speak to the principal. We're filing a lawsuit against you. And you know what? I'm curious, from that $45 billion, how much of it goes to paying off lawsuits, especially these despicable lawsuits by these shyster lawyers?
Well, I don't know what percentage of that would be off of that, off the top of my head, but I will tell you this. The discipline, a lot of times, yes, you got cases of significant disciplinary issues that you have to deal with, and I had to deal with those kinds of issues. That is not the predominant theme in our school system. You talk to most teachers around the system, they won't tell you, I can't teach because the kids are just driving me crazy. That's not the question. The biggest problem we've had is that you're teaching sixth grade and the child that you're teaching reads on a second grade level. That's been the biggest problem. That's why I put the system in place to make sure that we change that old way of how we were teaching kids. And you know how I know that it works? First of all, it's already showing results. It takes several years before you really see the biggest results. But here's the main reason why we know that it really works. You know who did the same implementation of the system? The state of Mississippi. This is a deep red state. For years, Mississippi had the worst school system in the nation.
You know that most of the kids in Mississippi couldn't spell Mississippi?
They couldn't spell Mississippi.
It's the truth.
Absolutely true,
They
Michael.
still don't know how to spell Mississippi.
No, that's not
in
true.
New York City.
Well, but maybe
the kids in New York City.
It's a lot of S's and I's.
The kids in Mississippi know how to spell it. And you know why? Because they went to something that they call the science of reading, it's an old school way of teaching kids how to read. That's what we adopted here. Mississippi went from being the worst state in the nation on reading to damn near the best. But it took about 5 to 7 years before they actually got there. That's the system that I put in place in New York a couple of years ago. We're already seeing results. So it's like a person being pushed down into a hole, 100 feet into a hole, right? You climb up 50 feet. You're not out of the hole yet, but you're making progress. We are making progress. And I think, when I left, my successor, Melissa, she kept this same program going. The new chancellor that's there now, he's still keeping that going. They've invested the right kind of money in it. You are going to see in New York City, over these next several years, continued improvement because of the system that I put in place.
Listen, I have a very important
Why did they get
question.
rid of you?
That's another question you have to ask. You'd have to ask Eric Adams.
I mean, if you think about it, right?
Let's call Eric right now.
I have a cell number. I'll tell you, we bumped into each other in Chicago. He was like, I'm going to need your help raising money. And I was like, yeah, sure, give me a call. So we swapped numbers. We were supposed to get together, and then boom, he had the problem. But here's the question your ideas in terms of helping to re-educate the system to benefit the children. These are all things that I don't care if you're on the left, you're on the right, you're in the center. Everybody probably acknowledges that what you did was the right move.
Yes.
Who's the fool that would turn around and get rid of somebody who actually helps to fix the system?
Well, I'll leave that to you guys to determine. But here's the deal. You can come in as a chancellor and you've got the right ideas and you know how to move the system and you can make great things happen. There are so many political influences to every damn decision that you have to make that it makes it really, really tough. I'll give you one example. The class size law that they put in place is something that really is, it was so crazy. Now, this was something that the union wanted to put in place. I worked well with the union while I was there on implementing this reading strategy.
Did you like the union?
I liked it well enough, yeah. Michael Mulgrew worked with him. He was not an obstacle to what I was trying to do. The biggest obstacle I faced, and it really became a bigger issue even after I left, this class size bill, which basically says that we have to hire thousands more teachers to lower the class size, when all the research tells us that smaller class size is not the biggest strategy for winning the game. The biggest strategy is to have a great teacher in the classroom. I can be a teacher. If I'm a mediocre teacher with 25 kids, I'm going to do worse than a teacher that's got 35, but who's a great teacher who really knows how to teach kids. That's the number one thing that you've got to do. And that law is going to cost us millions of dollars, and I think it's the reason why Mamdani has even asked for more time.
Mamdani completely worthless.
Hey,
by the way,
Michael, this is my show.
I apologize.
This is no excuses. This isn't.
Michael said you asked him to come back in here.
No, wait a minute.
This
isn't when you know you know.
Can I ask one more? And then
one more, and then give me a break.
Here's the crazy part. Right now, technology is at a level that we have not seen in the history of this world. AI. Don't tell me that you can't use AI. You can't use some programs. Make the programs interesting for young children to engage. These kids could play Fortnite, which is 14 days. Most of them don't even know that, right? It means 14 days. So they'll play 14 straight days of Fortnite. How about if you make a game where it helps you to learn?
Are we going to bring Michael in as a chancellor, the next chancellor?
No. Listen, Michael's absolutely right. The last thing I was working on before I left as chancellor was what we were doing on AI and technology. It's here. And it is the future.
Use it.
And if we're supposed to be preparing our kids to be, take their rightful place in this society, you've got to give them all the skills that they need. You can't run away from it. And when I was there, I was leaning into it. I put an AI advisory committee together. I had a huge conference, but I wasn't there long enough to bake it. And now I'm seeing the system run further and further away, put their head in the sand, and that is not the way to prepare our kids for the future.
One of the good things that I've got to give credit when credit is due. Kathy Hochul took away cell phones in schools. I think that
I had been advocating for that for a year before Kathy Hochul.
Okay, but you know
what?
And
you know the reason why we didn't do it when I was there?
Why?
Because Eric Adams wouldn't let me do it. Why? Because there was his own political reasons. The governor's office called me and said, we want to have the rest of the state follow what you're doing, David. And we never got it off the ground until after Kathy Hochul came and did it. But we were leading in that space. But again, that's the challenge about being a chancellor when you now have to deal with all these other political issues in spite of what we know works well for kids.
So let's talk about Mayor Mamdani. What's your first impression of his education agenda?
I would have an impression if I heard one. I've not heard an education agenda yet from Mayor Mamdani. He has, he's laid out a vision on a lot of other issues. On education, I've been very disappointed. I've spoken to him once, and I even gave him some things that I thought that he really should be focused on. How to get kids more civically engaged. How to build on technology and AI. As a young guy, he really could be the guy that sets a tone for how we do that and make this school system the most technologically literate system in the nation. I've not heard a word of an education vision other than 3K and 2K.
That is breaking news here on No Excuses. Former Chancellor David Banks has not heard the mayor's agenda on education. Mayor Mamdani, I know that you are listening because you know what? If you don't listen to No Excuses, I don't know what you're listening to, right?
And I'm here to help
you can
him.
Learn. You mean
when you know?
Well, when you know comes before me, so I'm like the cleanup batter.
You sure are. You're the Aaron Judge of this WABC team.
I am fired up,
you
man.
Are.
And with Michael here by my side, listen, we got to break for some more commercial breaks. Some more commercial breaks as they pay the bills. All right,
that's right.
Take it away.